just when you thought scamsters couldn't get any worse, I'm going to stun you. What's on the Scammers Hall of Shame top 10 from the Federal Trade Commission is where someone dies and the grieving family members get a phone call from someone pretending to be from the funeral home saying that they need money from you to proceed with handling the funeral. NBC News did a nice story in depth about this, and it is just absolutely shocking how low they'll go. So Lisa Motto was profiled in the NBC News story. It's one of the people who was profiled. She lost her husband, who she'd been married to for 22 years, to lung cancer. And she was obviously torn up, and she gets a call out of nowhere from someone claiming to be from the funeral home who says that she owes $5,000, but before they'll proceed with any of the funeral arrangements, she's got to give them $2,500 by Zelle or Apple Pay. And she completely, fish hook and mouth, tries to send the money and ends up not being able to. And so it was flagged as suspicious, thank goodness. And so then they said, oh, well, since you weren't able to send it those two ways, let's do PayPal. Her son was there with her as she's just grieving so deeply from the loss of her husband of all these years. And her son says, hang up the phone, hang up the phone, hang up the phone. And she did. And then later it turned out it was completely bogus. Now, as she said, they just catch you at such a weak moment, obviously. And she went on to say there's a special place in hell for people like that. So the funeral home swindle is now in the annals of the top 10 in the Hall of Shame from the FTC. And they want you to know how it works. So they scour online obits. Obits now that used to be a big part of the newspaper business with a printed paper, and it would appear potentially a few days after. Now they're online instantly, often posted by the funeral home itself. So the criminals are scanning all these posts, and then they just start contacting one after another, after another, after another, after another. And they're very well trained to be very empathetic, that whole Mr. Slumber kind of routine. And they're so good at being bad. So know this, the phone will say on caller ID, it will have the name of the funeral home. The caller ID is spoofed. And so you're automatically in your moment of sadness and grief and the fog you live in at that time, you're like, oh, the funeral home's calling. You answer, and it's this scam. I want you to be really, really aware this is going on. One of the stories NBC News talked about was a family was at the funeral home for visitation when the call came in pretending to be from the funeral home. I mean, these people have real gall. And so know that the way scams work is so much sense of urgency. You must do this now. And before you have a chance to really think about it, you end up having money stolen. One-way trip, no way to recover. So know this is going on. And I know in that moment of grief, when you're in that fog, have this somewhere in your deep memory that you remember this is a hot scam right now. Krista?
Despicable.
You look so disturbed.
I mean, it's shocking to me how someone could sleep at night and do that to someone, but